Hello, welcome everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to do the first of our new monthly podcasts with me, Debbie Young, and my indie author friend, David Penny. We are both part of the Alliance of Independent Authors. I have been for about the last 3.5 years the commissioning editor for the blog. My role is changing, so I shall be, from the autumn, I shall be publications manager, responsible for the many guidebooks that we have, our growing range of guidebooks, as well as overseeing the blog still, the self-publishing advice blog. And David Penny is our technical manager. We're both established independent self-publishing authors, so we know what we're talking about from practical experience ourselves. We're both very happy to be here to help you answer your questions. Please always feel free to send us in questions for each podcast from month to month, and we'll try and answer as many as we can fit into the time available. If we're not able to answer your question, or you think too late of a question that you'd like to send us, all is not lost, because you can find lots of information on our blog from our guidebooks, and if you would like to join the Alliance of Independent Authors, you can also have access to our closed Facebook group, which allows you to ask any questions you like about any aspect of self-publishing at any time of day or night. I always like to say the sun never sets on the Alliance of Independent Authors, because we're a truly global organisation, and so whatever time, day or night, you ask a question on our Facebook group, you will always find someone awake somewhere who will give you an answer. And we've got thousands of members all over the world, lots of different stages of their journeys of self-publishing, and no matter how experienced any of us are, we all remember very much what it was like to be at the early stages where we were struggling to make sense of it all. So let us help you make sense of your self-publishing journey, and we'll fire away for today's podcast.
Yeah, and that's something for some of us that was not so long ago as well, Debbie. So, in case somebody's watching this on catch up, we're going to wish everybody a happy Independence Day in the US, because this is going out on July the 4th, 2017. So if you're watching it 20 years from now, or 5 years from now, or tomorrow, or even live, that's where we are at this moment. Welcome to the Indie Author podcast.
Yes, and also we should say it's just been the 150th Canada Day, which is very exciting as well, just 3 days ago. Yeah. So happy anniversary to all Canadians too.
Yeah, did you see President Trudeau's socks? They were very nice.
No, I'll have to get those on.
White socks with red maple leaves on them, which was
nice. Whoever's selling those is going to sell out now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah.
Whether you're Canadian or not.
Yeah. Okay. As Debbie said, both of us are indie authors, and we've been through the mill and know exactly the sort of problems that everybody who's just starting out doing this will simply be I would say pulling their hair out, but obviously I've already pulled my hair out. So I've been through the mill and I've come out the other side, sans hair.
But still smiling.
It is, yeah. We thought we'd start off really by a little bit of a news roundup and see what's been going on in the indie world this month. One of the things that popped up recently for me is that I saw some comments that Amazon reviews have changed. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Debbie.
I heard about it, but I must admit I haven't looked at it too closely. I know they change it all the time, don't they? Like to keep
everything. Yeah, we'll come back onto this, I think, because everything changes all the time. It's one of the things as a successful indie author you have to be aware of. Something you thought was never going to change will suddenly change overnight.
Just when you think you've got on top of things, they move the goalposts, so you have to catch up again. Yeah. What appears to have happened, though, is in the past you would get a review rating that might say 4.2 out of 5, or if you're really lucky, 4.8 out of 5, or something like that. And if you're really unlucky, 2 out of 5. What's happened is they've seemed to have taken 2 of your categories that you have allocated against your book, and they are giving you a review rating out of each of those categories. So this came up initially, I saw by somebody as a complaint that they'd got an overall review rating of something like 4.6 out of 5, but under a particular category, and in my case it would be historical fiction,
it was coming up as only 4.2 out of 5, and they thought it was a bit suspect that you were being graded outside of what they would normally have expected. Personally, and I made a comment that I quite liked it, because people tend to read within genre, and they will look for a book within a particular genre. So if you are, so for instance, I think my rating is 4.6 out of 5 globally, and for historical mysteries it's also 4.6 out of 5. So that shows that the readership of my books tends to be pretty much what I'm aiming it for.
Which is fine if you are writing for a specific genre, but of course one of the joys of being indie is that you don't have to write for a particular genre. You can invent your own sort of blend of genre, and so I could see people coming unstuck a bit there. And I mean, my novels, my series of novels that I've launched quite recently, they are aimed at the sort of the cozy classic mystery, but the other categories that I've got are also humour and romantic comedy, because they are quite funny as well. I mean, humour's a big part of them, and so I'm sort of straddling different genre. I tell you, another thing that they've changed recently on the reviews, which made more sense to me, was, and this was only a couple of months ago, they used to have, and I think it's only rolled out so far on the States, I'm not sure if it's on the other Amazon territories now, but they started separating the reviews that were verified by people who were verified purchasers of your book, so they knew that you'd bought the book from Amazon, and other people who had just reviewed on the site but not necessarily bought from there. And the default is now that when you go on to Amazon.com and you look at the reviews, the first set of reviews that you see are just the verified purchases and not the others. And you have to actively check tick the drop-down menu to get all reviews, which to us, because we're going on and doing these things all the time, is just another hoop we have to jump through, and we can absorb that kind of change quite readily. But I think for the average reader, a lot of people just wouldn't even notice that, and so they'd miss out on the other reviews, which I think I did wonder at first whether it was the thin end of the wedge, and whether Amazon was going to start rejecting any reviews that were not of verified purchases.
But it is only on US at the moment, I noticed. It doesn't do it on the UK site, and I'm assuming it doesn't do. What they tend to do is roll something out in America.
Yeah, I mean, they might test it there.
If it works, it comes to the rest of the world. So
I'm rather hoping they decide it doesn't work there. And I think from Amazon's point of view, because although we like to think that Amazon is there to help us to sell books, of course it isn't really. It's there to make more money for Amazon and for its shareholders, and to build up its business, which it does very, very well. But I don't think it's actually in Amazon's own interest. I don't think it will create the most satisfaction if they remove a load of the reviews because they're not verified purchases, because ultimately what they want to do is to provide the best experience for the reader, and the way they do that is to provide the more reviews, a more diverse set of reviews, a bigger set of reviews. And so I'm not, if I was an Amazon director, I think I would not be sold on that idea just yet.
Yeah, I think Amazon's going through, well, you and I both know Amazon are going through a whole lot of changes at the moment. They've changed the desktop to report on your sales and all sorts of different bits and pieces. And it's a bit, it's not worrying, but it's a bit off-putting that Amazon, the biggest tech company, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, probably the biggest tech company after Google, is making a number of sort of fundamental mistakes in some of the stuff that they're bringing out, bad coding and bad testing and so on. So it's a shame, but
there's certainly been a lot of reports about the sales figures not being accurate lately. If you go onto your KDP dashboard in particular, and if you're running Amazon advertisements, then you're not. It's generally perceived that you're not getting accurate feedback, which is a shame, because Amazon is just so clever. I mean, they have done so many extraordinary things, broken the mold, done so many amazing things. That it's a shame. it comes as kind of a surprise when they get something a bit wrong, because they've done so
think
much that is so clever.
Yeah, they either have a new IT director, or they've given the work to somebody else.
An intern.
Yeah. They've probably been looking for these hackers that are getting into the White House, and they're giving them the instead. But I've noticed that my page reads had halved on, I think, Saturday or Sunday, which is one of the things that they're underreporting on Amazon page reads.
Quite a lot of people have been reporting that.
Yeah, it's bounced back over the last couple of days. It's still not all the way up to where it was, but it is recovering. But there's also this sort of paranoia theory about Amazon that they're out to get us all, and I don't really subscribe to that view. I think their heart's in the right place. It's just that sometimes their head goes in a totally different direction and they make some mistakes. But usually they bring them all back.
Yeah, and what they're trying to do is so revolutionary. It's changed so many people's lives, and it's also, it's not Amazon. We tend to, because we're authors, we tend to think, oh, Amazon books, but they offer so many opportunities, not just to indie authors. I mean, the average indie author would not be where they are now without Amazon. No. But also there are masses and masses of small businesses all over the world who would not be able to function without Amazon. I was talking today to a friend of mine who mentioned that her mother lives in a little remote seaside resort in on the North Norfolk coast, which is sort of, east of England, and she went in to visit all these lovely little shops selling lots of nice little things for the house and all that sort of thing, and nice sort of tourist souvenirs. And they were all saying that with the low footfall that they get from real life people coming into the shop, if it wasn't for selling things on Amazon through their online stores, they wouldn't be in business. Lots of businesses like that, especially in remote rural places. So we've got a lot, although people, Amazon has its critics, we shouldn't lose sight of just how much they've done for us and for so many other businesses.
Yeah, they have revolutionized online selling. And as indies, we are one of the major beneficiaries of that.
Yes.
Because we would have had no option but to go the old sort of vanity publishing route had Amazon not been around, and it would have cost us money, whereas you can publish entirely free on Amazon if you want.
Yeah. That's the great thing that people lose sight of as well, is that you can publish your books on Amazon with no money paid up front. You don't have to have that seed corn capital to set up your indie author business, because you don't start paying Amazon until they start selling your books, and then they take a little cut every time they sell a book. And I think a lot of people don't realise that. Obviously, if you're doing it all to the professional standards that ALLi advises, you will have had some upfront costs, because you will have paid your designer, your maybe a formatter, editor, proofreader, whatever. So you will have had some costs, but you no longer have to stump up for the print costs up front. You don't have to be in that classic position of decades gone by, when you had to have your litho print run of 1,000 books to get a affordable unit cost. You can literally just print one book at a time, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and we have a question which we'll come back to on that topic a little bit later on. But before we finish on the news items, there's something I want to ask you about. It's this Friday we're launching the ALLi bookstore book. Is that right?
Yes.
You know more about this than I do, so if you can explain.
I do, yes. And the reason I know more is because I largely wrote it. It's very dear to my heart. And it's been a very exciting and interesting project, because like most authors, I love bookshops, but also like most authors, I have to be quite sort of circumspect about trying to put my books through bookstores, because it's costly, it's time consuming. People can be wary of what kind of reception they might get from a bookseller. And so what the point of this book is to enable authors to understand how bookshops work. And we're talking about bookstores, about bricks and mortar stores, not online retailers like Amazon, but good old-fashioned traditional bookshops and bookstores. Now, I say traditional and old-fashioned. In fact, a lot of bookstores now are doing very exciting things, finding all sorts of new ways of trading, becoming centres of their local community, and doing loads of things that the likes of Amazon can't do at a very local level. So the bookstore book, it's called How to Get Your Self-Published Book into Bookstores, takes you through the way that bookstores operate, what they're looking for, the criteria that your book needs to meet to be considered for being stocked in a bookshop. It talks about selling books through non-conventional bookshops as well, through bookstores, through non-book stores, so what's called special sales, because if you're writing in a particular genre, then you have the opportunity to place your book in other kinds of shops as well. For example, I've got a collection of short stories called Marry and Haste, which is all about marriage and dating, love and marriage. And I've placed some of those books in sort of wedding type shops, you know, stores where they're selling wedding dresses and party favours and all that sort of thing. But what it's really doing is helping authors to understand the process, working out the right way, and there are very formulaic ways that you need to publish your book so that bookstores can buy them cost effectively for them, so that they can make the profit that they need to make out of it at the same time as allowing you to make a profit. So that's coming out on Friday as an ebook. Paperback will follow, and it's a really good, I don't know there's a book quite like it, but it's a really good way of finding out in a nutshell all you need to know about how to get your book into bookshops, whether it's worth it, and how to do that alongside all of the online publishing as well. So we're not saying, oh, you've got to stop all your online trading and just do this. We're realists as well, because for a lot of people it's not going to be worth it. But this is, we're showing you how to make it worth it, and how to go about it. And I hope it will help lots of people everywhere.
Yeah. I must admit, I tend to ignore print and I tend to ignore bookshops, but that's just me.
Well, I think a lot of you're not alone, David, at all. I think a lot of other very successful authors have the same approach as you. I mean, Joanna Penn does as well. She's only recently started doing print, and a lot of people, most indie authors, will make the vast majority of their money from ebook sales, and the book is not contradicting that at all. But there are also very good reasons to have print books, because it just gives you something tangible to show people. You know, no matter, and there are still lots of people who don't read ebooks anyway. So if you don't publish print books, then you're cutting yourself off from that market. It's just very nice if you're giving a talk, or if you're just sort of meeting somebody and talking about books, to be able to pull your book out of the bag and show them your book. So this is a previous book, you know, to be able to, although this book gets mostly read, I have one already read, although this book mostly gets read as an ebook, when I put that on the table at a writer's conference or meeting or whatever, then people, you know, they want to pick it up, they want to look at it, and they might well still read it online, but it makes a big difference. So I think that everybody who's published a book, even if they're not really going to try and sell it into bookshops, should still have a few. And it's very easy to do it. And you do have some, don't you? You do have some print books.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I do. Strangely enough, you were showing that there. I'm just looking at the bookshelf. I have a little bookshelf. I have a huge bookshelf, and I have a small bookshelf which is within reach. And I've got all of my craft books are in print, because I find them much easier to work with. So
yes.
Joanna Penn's How to Market a Book, and then I've got Islamic Spain, 1250 to 50.
No writer should be without that one.
Oh, I know, indeed. But it's interesting that you were saying about ebooks and print books, because I was really very directed towards ebooks. And I've noticed now on Amazon's new dashboard, you get your print books and your ebooks on the same graph. And I think as you build a certain momentum and a certain sales profile, your print books also pick up. So I'm selling not insignificant numbers of print books each day now,
yes.
Which I think comes as a result, as you say, people hear about your books and they buy the ebooks, but lots of people don't want ebooks. They want actual print books
Yeah.
they can read as well. So yeah,
And
I
of
think
course,
it all
also,
works
if somebody
together.
enjoys an ebook, then they might want to gift a book to a friend. I mean, I do that all the time. You know, I'll read it, because I read most novels I read as ebooks,
Yeah.
but then I'm quite often buying a print copy to give to somebody for Christmas or birthday or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So it's quite good as a recommended. So, and as you've said to me as well, because I know when I first started publishing Cozy Mysteries, you said, "Oh well, you'll sell print on that just because of the genre," and really without trying. Although most of the book sales are ebooks, there's a steady flow of print book sales as well, because people just like print books. I'm the same as you. I like the non-fiction books and reference books in print, which is why, although we give our advice books free as a member benefit to ALLi members, we also make them available to buy as paperbacks, because you like to have those marked them up, having little stickers in like that, you know, for the bits that you need to go back to refer to. So I think, I think you have to have a very good reason not to go to print, and I haven't quite.
I don't think there's a downside to it, because, as you say, it doesn't. Well, there is in some cases, and we'll come on to this maybe before we finish. There is a slight cost to going for a print book, and we'll maybe talk about that in a little while when we come to the final question. But to move on to the questions we have had, I had one come through recently about Amazon Kindle books, and it was an interesting one, because I wasn't quite sure what the questioner was asking me. He said, how many books does Amazon currently hold, and how many books do they publish each day? I kind of half knew some of those answers, but not all of them. So I went on a bit of a search, and basically, if you want to know the answers to some of those questions, what I would recommend anybody does is, if they go to the, let me find it again, authorearnings.com, and they will get a series of reports, and I've just got the most recent February one up, which is getting a bit old now, but they'll have another one come out before long. And that's showing that in the USA, 675 million print books were sold per year, and 487,298 ebook sales per year.
Wow.
And in the UK, there's almost 100,000 ebook sale per year, and so on and so forth. And the question intrigued me, because I wasn't quite sure whether the questioner was wondering, is it worth me going into this indie author thing if there's 600,000, million, 2 million ebooks being published in the year? How am I going to stand out from the others? And really, this is the whole purpose of this podcast that you and I are doing, Debbie, is that anybody can be an indie author. And if you hone your craft, and I would recommend everybody hones their craft as much as they possibly can, doing things professionally and doing things to the best of your ability will put you in the top 1% of indie authors automatically. Yeah. Because a lot of people haven't got a clue, and you see, but you go in and you see books with spelling mistakes. You even see books with mistakes in the blurb that they put up on the sales page. And that's it. People are going to read that, and they're just going to immediately turn off. So I think, even though it is a very big pond, it's only the people who are swimming in the top, meniscus of the water that will be successful. And you don't need to worry about the fact that there might be millions and millions of books you're in competition with. I
mean, really, it's you have to disregard everybody else and just keep doing producing the best books that you possibly can, and the rest are irrelevant, really. There are also a lot of the people there are an awful lot of people out there still who assume that going into self-publishing will be make them a quick buck, will make them millionaires overnight, and all this sort of thing. We all know, we all know that it's a marathon or sprint, and you have to have staying power. You have to produce, excuse me, I've got hay fever. You have to produce more than one book, ideally a series or more than one series, lots and lots of high quality books, and you will rise to the surface. There are an awful lot of people who dip their toe in the water, produce 1 or 2 books very badly, then gets stroppy because they're not selling any, or because they get bad reviews because their books are badly written, badly presented, full of errors, and then they give up and go away. Now, an interesting thing with Amazon, although there are zillions and zillions of books on there, the whole self-publishing scenario is quite different to the traditional publishing scenario, because with trade publishing, if a book isn't working, if it's not selling and paying its way within 6 months or a year, then it goes out of print. They delist it, they make space for the other books that are up and coming in their catalogue, and they're looking for the next best thing all the time. And so they discontinue a book. But with self-published books, unless you consciously unpublish it, which most people will never do because they always hope that they'll leave the book up there, in the same way that there's lots of abandoned websites, you know, that nobody ever does anything with, and they're the ones that drift to the bottom of the search engines and so get forgotten. Same happens with books. So although there are lots of books out there, there are also a huge number that are not being actively marketed, that are just going to sink without trace. So there's not really quite as much competition as you think. Still a lot of competition, but not quite as much competition as perhaps some people fear.
Yeah, I think so. And as I said, if you know what you're doing and you act in a professional manner, that's really what counts. You know, you need to, and it's a learning curve. I've been writing since 2012, and it's only really in the last 18 months that my sales have started to increase. And it is
but that's happened. And that's happened because you've put effort and focus, and you've kept at it. You've had staying power. So you're now writing number 4 in your series.
5.
Five. Good Lord, yes, of course I read all of them. This, you know, on number 5. And you've been since I first met you, 3 or 4 years ago, when you just got 1 book out. You had a plan. You knew you were going to have your 10 books in your series, and you're on target. You are promoting them really well. Doing everything consistently and to a high quality, and that's why you are being successful. It's not just that you're lucky, you know, it's not lucky David Penny, it's hard-working, focused David Penny.
Yeah. It's quite funny. I went, probably 2.5 years ago, I went to a seminar of Joanna Penn's, and one of the things she does, which is great, and it's a real business trick, she says, she gives you a piece of paper and an envelope, and she says, write down 5 things that you're going to be doing a year from now. So I wrote down, I'll be earning X £1,000 a year, and so on and so on and so on. And then you seal the envelope and give it to her, and she sends it back to you 6 months later to remind you, you know, are you actually achieving this?
That's nice.
And I took great pleasure. I met her at something not so long ago, and I said, Jo, I had this thing, and I remember what I wrote to you, and I said, I'm now earning that much per month. And I said I wanted to be earning that per year. And that was 2 years ago, so I was really pleased with that.
I bet she was very pleased as well.
She was very pleased indeed.
Excellent.
Yeah. Because this isn't a competitive profession.
No,
it's not like all. People will buy your book and my book if they like reading books. They won't buy yours or mine. They will buy both of them. That's what they want. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna bring a question up and ask you to cover it, Debbie, because the last one we have is a huge one, which we'll probably have to come back to because we're never going to have time to finish it tonight. But is it imperative to have your own ISBN? Should you own your own ISBN? Or this questioner says, I currently use the free ones provided by the retailers.
Right, okay. This is one of the questions that certain indie authors will... It kind of divides indie authors, and there are some people who will say, no, never, why should I, when I can get them free from the distribution platforms? And you can. But over the years, fewer and fewer people are saying that, because they realise the value of having your own ISBN, in that, well, let's just take a little step back and explain what an ISBN is for people who don't know. Because I must admit, until I came into the world of indie publishing, I didn't really know what it was, apart from being a little string of numbers on the back of a book. It's a unique international number, sort of product identifier that applies only to your book. You have, it specifies a particular product. So you have a different ISBN. An ebook will have one ISBN. A paperback of the same book will have a different ISBN, and an audiobook will have a different ISBN, because they are there to help make sure that people who are ordering them get the product that they want. Now, if you use an ISBN provided by CreateSpace, for example, which is Amazon's paperback publishing service, then the publisher of record for that ISBN will be CreateSpace. Now, some people might say, "Oh, well, that's fine. I don't mind about that. I'm not that precious. You know, that's fine." But there are certain setbacks, which both for you and for the wider world of the indie author, if you have only a CreateSpace ISBN for your paperback, when a bookseller in a bookstore looks it up, if somebody comes in and says, "Oh, will you order this? I've heard about this book. It's wonderful. It's not on your shelves. Can you order it for me? Here's the ISBN." And the bookseller looks it up and sees that ISBN is allocated to CreateSpace. The bookseller, many booksellers will say, "No, can't do it. It's from Amazon. They're closing down bookshops." Kind of dubious argument, but and so they won't have anything to do with you. They will also perceive you to be something of an amateur because you're not published by an imprint or not published by an identifiable entity, whether it's you yourself. I could set up my ISBNs to say that they were published by Debbie Young. I've actually got my own imprint, which is Hawkesbury Press.
Hawkesbury Press,
yeah, on the side here.
Yeah. And I use Rivetry Print.
Yeah, and it just looks a little bit more professional. It just shows the bookseller that you are, and other readers as well, that you are you know how the book trade works, that you are going about it in a professional manner. Now, to the average punter, the average reader, they don't give a damn who the book is published by. I wouldn't know who my favourite authors are published by, and I don't really care about who they're published by. And so it doesn't matter from the reader's point of view, but it matters to the people who are your middlemen between you and the reader. Also, if you don't have your ISBN, your own ISBN, then your book won't be counted in the figures amassed by the publishing industry to show that reflect the number of books being published and the number of book sales, number of ebook sales, number of paperback sales, and so forth. For some reason, they exclude figures for CreateSpace for any ISBNs that are owned by CreateSpace or any of the other distribution platforms. So it's two reasons: a selfish one and a selfless one to go for using your own ISBN. And it's actually not hard to buy an ISBN, and it's actually quite nice to have your own. And I think it makes you feel like you're a proper publisher as well. A proper publisher, terrible to say, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
I must admit, I used to be very much of the opinion that I always had an ISBN for print book, but I never used them for ebooks, and I've changed my mind now. And I use an ISBN for both. But one of the things I was going to mention is the cost of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think they've just gone up in this country. They might be 300 and some odd pounds for 10 if you buy a block of 10. But I think if you buy a block of 1,000, which is, or 100, it comes down significantly. So I think it's about 28, 32 pounds per ISBN if you buy 10. But it comes down to about £8 if you buy 100. So depending on how many books you intend to publish, it's worth buying 100 at the outset if you think you're in it for the long haul. Otherwise, I've only got 10 at the moment, but I'm getting close to, once I get the 5th book out, I'll have used all those 10 up.
Yeah.
So well, I'm going to buy 100 next time.
I think the first time I bought 10, and then the next time I bought 100, because I got through the 10 quite quickly, because I used them for the ebook and paperback of about 5 books, I think. So that used those up. And then I thought, oh, damn it, I'll invest in 100. It's kind of an investment in your future. And also, it means you don't have to worry so much if you mess one up when you're setting a book up, which happens to us all, because you don't think, oh, my God, that cost me 30 quid or so. You know you've got some spares. So it's, and what we should say there, though, is that we're just talking about the cost in the UK.
Yeah, the US is similar. But if you live in Canada or France or other countries, they give them to you for free.
Yeah, I think they're subsidised by the government as a kind of sort of cultural investment, which is wonderful. But unfortunately, you can't pick and choose.
No.
It's a conscious monopoly. You can't pick and choose where you buy your ISBNs from. You can only buy them where you're living.
However, I have a house in Spain now, Debbie, so I must check if I can buy Spanish ISBNs.
Yeah.
Or can I get Spanish ISBNs for free? I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I can vote in Spain. Can I do that? Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. This is going to be the last question. We're not going to outstay our welcome tonight. If you have lots and lots of questions for next month, then there's a forum on the ALLi webpage, I believe, Debbie, where you can submit your questions.
Yes.
We would recommend that you do that. It would be nice to have 1 million questions, even if we can only answer 10 a night. But had a convoluted question about, it was a long question. Basically, it comes down to, how do I publish without paying royalties or paying for services? And do I need print on demand or pod or other print services? And this is basically a set of questions every single prospective indie author is going to have to ask themselves. So we'll try to cover here exactly what you need to do in order to, let's assume you're a first-time indie author and you're getting close to the end of finishing your, sometimes as a first-time indie author, it's like your 400,000 word magnum opus, but hopefully it's a quarter that size. And you want to bring it out. First thing I have to state is that be very, very careful of people that, I'm learning Spanish at the moment, and the free program is funded by adverts, and one came up this afternoon from Author House, because it knows I'm an indie author, and it says, would you like to see your book in print? Click here and we will tell you how simple it is. And the number of horror tales that you and I and everybody else has heard of, people spending £5,000, £6,000, £10,000 on editing, printing, cover design, formatting, publishing, all sorts of different services, particularly the marketing services, and it's simply not worked. And
usually to a very, very low standard as well.
Exactly. So you have to be careful of that. If you are an indie author and you've finished your first book, or you're coming up to finishing your first book, there's only a few things you need to know. You don't have to pay anybody royalties or money to produce it.
No.
If it's an ebook, it's completely free. And if it's an ebook, it depends what you can. I made the decision when I started writing I was going to go exclusively with Amazon, so that I can get money from page reads as well. That's a decision I made. It may or may not be the right one. I know Joanna Penn would string me up by my ankles for making that decision, but it works for me, and it doesn't work for other people. You will certainly have to sell through Amazon because they are the biggest player in town. I mentioned earlier on about the author earnings report, and if I just pull that up very briefly, it says on here somewhere, where's the figure? It's a pie chart. 91% of ebook sales are through Amazon.
Wow.
6% through Apple, 1% Kobo, 2% through Nook. So if you're going to sell ebooks, then you would be a total idiot not to put them up onto Amazon.
Yeah. So
you need to do that. And if you want them to be, as the term wide, there is exclusive to Amazon KDP, which means you can't sell them outside of the Amazon infrastructure. Or the other term is to go wide, which is you can sell them on Apple and Kobo and everywhere else. You can do that individually, but if you are a newbie indie author, my recommendation would to go with one of the distributors such as Draft2Digital or Smashwords or the others.
Draft2Digital is really easy to use. I use Draft2Digital,
yeah, and they're really good people. They're great guys. Smashwords, I must admit, I used Smashwords when it first started because Draft2Digital didn't exist.
No.
But much as I like Mark, the CEO of Smashwords, the website and the process I don't think has changed hardly at all from 5 or 6 years ago to now.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because so much else changes all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Mark would argue that they got it right at the outset, so they don't need to change it. But, yeah. So if you're going to do ebooks, I would recommend you go to Amazon. Well, let's assume you want to go wide. Go to Draft2Digital. It doesn't cost you anything. They will upload it to all of the major platforms and a lot of minor platforms and library services and so on and so forth. And they will pay you your royalties, I think, 90 days in arrears, which is exactly what Amazon pays you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want to, sorry, Debbie.
I was going to say, again, they take their cut for promoting them for you, but that's fair enough. You can't grumble at that.
Yeah. Yeah, you will have to pay. You will never get 100% of the royalty unless you sell it yourself. No. And occasionally, I come across people who say, "How do I sell my ebooks or my print books through my own website?" And you can do it, but then you're responsible for the VAT and selling in different countries and the shipping and everything else. Yes, and apart from which, if Amazon is the biggest bookstore in the world, why would you set yourself up in competition to the biggest? People aren't going to come to your website. If you want to buy a book, you just type amazon.co.uk or amazon.com or wherever you happen to be.
Yeah, I think it's great to have a few copies that you can hand sell. When you're at events and things, or just keeping a few in your car or your handbag, your briefcase or whatever, but trying to sell them for your own website, you're setting yourself up, because people expect to have really quick service. They expect like sort of 24/7 availability, expect next day delivery, maybe free delivery if they're with Amazon Prime. You just can't compete with that. You don't want to be. You just make a rod for your own back. You could spend the time that you spend fulfilling your own orders doing something much more useful towards your progress as an indie author.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour world. It's amazing. I'll be sitting here. I could be sitting here this time of night, and I will think, oh, I quite fancy that book by Debbie Young. What was it called? The Sophie Sayers Mysteries. And you log on and you click on buy, and it says, and then within about 10 minutes, quite often at this time of the night, you will get an email saying, your book has been shipped. You will get it tomorrow, and you think, oh, wow, that's great.
And people are just so used to that now. Whereas if I was receiving an order at home tonight, even though we've got a little post office in the village and I could walk around the corner in the morning, it would I couldn't compete with Amazon's delivery times.
You can.
Or with the economy of the delivery, because I couldn't offer an Amazon Prime service. I mean, I'm on Amazon Prime and I get loads of books with no postage, not having to pay any postage. Now an author isn't going to offer free postage, because postage is a really significant cost.
It is, and I've started downloading some of their free books you get once a month.
All right.
They send you an email. You must get one, Debbie, if you're in Prime. And they give you a list of, I think, half a dozen books, and you can get them. And they're pre-published, they're pre-print, so they're about 4 to 6 weeks before the publication date. And they're sent out as like ARCs, so that you can do some reviews.
Advanced review copies,
So those are quite good as well. But
that's it. To be honest, I've never actually seen any there that I've actually wanted to read. I've always got an enormous reading list of books I've bought or been given.
I've downloaded a couple, and one I read halfway through and threw away, and the other one I didn't think I got that far. The other thing we need to mention about this question, however, is we've talked about ebooks, but a lot of people would like to see a print book. They like to have one in their hand. They like to open it. The other thing, initially, this is advice for newbie indie authors. Whatever you do, don't go to your local printworks and order 1,000 or 10,000 copies of your magnum opus, because that's going to cost you a lot of money, and they will sit in your garage until doomsday, and then they will be too wet to burn. So always go for what's called pod or print-on-demand printers. And basically, there are two players there. The first one is Amazon's CreateSpace, which costs you absolutely nothing to use. The other one is Ingram Spark, which has a cost, but it's relatively minor. And if you order from them, I think it's 50 books within a year.
So I think it's within the first few months, I think.
Yeah, they will waive the setup costs. And if you're a member of the Alliance of Independent Authors, or if you follow the Indie Author Fringe, because Ingram Spark or a sponsor of that event, very often you will get a free setup code that will run for a limited period of time.
And also, as a member of ALLi, if you decide you need to upload an amended file, so you discover you've got a typo, or you just want to update the back matter in your book, you know, if you publish another book and you want to advertise that in the back of your previous books, then as a member of ALLi, you get to upload that for free rather than having to pay a new upload fee. So. And loads of ALLi members. I mean, there's a very affordable fee to join ALLi. I think it's £75, $99, I think at the moment. A lot of authors, even if you're only publishing one book a year, you can recoup your membership costs just on the costs that you save using Ingram Spark, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I get about 3 times my subscription back every year in discounts for editing and formatting and cover design, etc., etc. So, you know, it works really well for me.
Yes. I mean, I had, the other day, I had 2 invoices coming at once, one from my cover designer and one from my editor. And the discounts this is for the second book, Trick or Murder, in the Sophie Sayer series. And those 2, the savings that I worked out, the savings that I made with those 2 invoices just on one day, that was double what the cost of that's for the savings was double the cost of an annual fee. So, and that's what I'm going to be doing 3 books a year in this series, and then it's a no-brainer to pay the fee and get the benefits and lots of other benefits.
I know. I'm aware that we've gone through that final question in super fast time. There's an awful lot of information in there, and I think maybe next month we might come back to some of those topics, because what we've done is give a really, really brief overview of what you can and can't do. But there's a lot of digging down you need to do to find out some of the stuff behind all of it.
There's also very, very useful, apart from our guidebooks, there's also a very useful set of lots and lots of useful blog posts. We've got is it over 1,000 blog posts we've got now? Over 1,500 blog posts I think we've got now. And there's some particularly good ones on ISBNs. So if you go to the selfpublishingadvice.org blog, there's a search box top right. If you put in whatever the keyword is for what you're looking for, ISBN, for example, create space, Ingram Spark, whatever, put in the search term then, and you'll get all of the blog posts that relate to that. One particularly useful one is if you put in create space and Ingram Spark, then you'll get lots of things about using both of those services for your print on demand. So it's a good first source of reference for any self-publishing question, really.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dave. I'm aware we might be on the verge of outstaying our welcome for our first broadcast, so I think we'll probably call a close to this about now. Thank everybody for watching. If you have been watching, I've got the number of viewers at the bottom. I won't tell you what it is. It's a very depressing figure, but
all the Americans will be out celebrating Independence Day, won't they?
Will, they will. That's
it's independence. We like independence. That's okay.
So thank you all for watching, and we will be back here on the first Tuesday of August.
Yep.
If you're back from holiday.
That's the day before I go on holiday, so I shall be happy. I'll be packed and cheerful and raring to flee to the Highlands.
I'm here. I'll have been to Harrogate Crime Festival, so which is one of the highlights of my year. So
fantastic.
Look forward to next month and getting some more questions. So any questions anybody has, please just send them through to us, and we will add them to the list, and we will try to answer them to the best of our abilities. And we have great abilities. We like to we have great, muchly big abilities.
Bigly. Right, lovely. Okay, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the 1st of August or thereafter.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.